Hi everyone, this is Real World Audio, and today is answering questions time, and it will end up being a masterclass on loudspeaker design. So 29 asked a complex question on loudspeaker design, and I will elaborate on this. So the first part is that people say first order crossover can damage Twitter. How do you get around this? Uh, the thing is that it depends on where you cross over your Twitter and what is the Twitter. So we can not generalize around this issue because there's a lot of Twitters. If the Twitter was designed to be crossed over at first order, then you can cross it over at that frequency where the design specifications say. However, nowadays most tweeters are designed to be crossed over at higher orders. If you want to cross them over at a lower than specified in the design sheet, in the data sheet of the tweeter, then what you need to do is two things. One of them is either increase the crossover frequency. So for example, if it says, let's say, 2 kilohertz second order, then if you want to go first order, then you have to up it to, let's say, around 3-4 kilohertz at first order, and then you can treat it at the same wattage as a second order crossed at 2 kilohertz. Or the other choice, if you want to cross it over at the same frequency, then you seriously have to derate the power rating of that tweeter. So if it's rated at 50 watts, crossing over at 2 kilohertz second order, if you cross it order at first order, same frequency, then you have to derate it to maybe like 15-20 watts tops, no more. Also, in addition, it's a good idea to keep in mind what the data sheet says, which is the lowest frequency and what order where they recommend crossing it over. Because if they say that you need to cross it over at 2 kilohertz at second order, if you want to extend the frequency response of the tweeter lower, it will not give you good sound. Because if you go lower than where the tweeter was designed to work with, then it's going to give you breakup modes. It's going to give you nastiness in the sound, and the transition region between your tweeter and your mid-range or woofer, that will have nasties in it. It will sound pretty bad. So if the datasheet says second order, then use second order with that tweeter. So I would say that if when you decide on what order crossover to choose, then you have to look at the driver that you want to use, and you cannot go beyond the capabilities of your tweeter. And nowadays people have the general impression that modern tweeters are getting better and better. They certainly have some parameters which are getting more or better than what they used to be for, let's say, tweeters made 50 years ago. But today, one thing that's getting better for tweeters is a much more increased power handling capacity. But that also comes at the cost of having a way nastier transition range. So that range where it meets your mid-range unit, it's much more nastier, and you have to cross them at second or third order to avoid those nasties getting into the sound. And when you go for an older design tweeter, they are much happier working at first order because they were designed without having those nasty breakup modes at low frequencies. And there is physics to it, and that's because of the suspension that the tweeters use that make a difference between having nasty breakup modes or not. In the older designs, older tweeters, you used to have those harmonica paper surrounds which are much more amenable for a nicer breakup mode. But these would be for units which are like an 8-inch, which would be more like a full range tweeter mid-range unit. For a higher frequency range unit, you often had just the paper cone attached directly to the side of the unit, with hardly any surround at it. And for modern tweeters, we have like the soft dome tweeters. Anyway, that's a very large and complicated topic, and I really don't want to go into it right now. But briefly said that modern drivers are not made to work with first order crossovers. There are, of course, some exceptions. For example, companies like Fostex, they make tweeters that are happy with the first order crossovers, but the majority, those tweeters that you see being used with third order crossover networks or fourth or whatever, they will not work with first order. Let's see, maybe thinking of a three-way speaker, cross it at 5 kilohertz, or do a two-way. So if you want to cross something over at 5 kilohertz, then you can use a tweeter that's designed at 2 kilohertz second order. You can try it out first order at 5 kilohertz. Yes, it might work, and maybe the breakup mode won't be so audible to hear it. You have to try it out. There's a chance it will work, but it depends on the tweeter you choose, and I cannot say any more on that. Let's see, if another thing, a second order crossover on both tweeter and woofer in a simple two-way. Would there be a phase shift like it is said to be caused by second order? So if I put second order on both, will there be still a phase difference? We will explore this in the next video, because I need to stop. I'm losing my voice here. I need to drink something. So let's continue from here.